Thanks very much. I was just enjoying listening to the presentation, and it is both in terms of the introduction. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, both in terms of the introduction and the presentation. It represents such an incredible richness. So I have some folks here who I've worked with a lot, right? And it's very important. I mean, I know Professor Harris mentioned and said I'm a retired professor, and that's wonderful. But Professor Harris and I have spent 25 years working together, building economies, right? The last thing he did was the growth strategy for Jamaica, and he built the industrial policy, and he most recently was brought over into England to study why Brexit happened and build a framework for human-centric development. Now, why do I say this? Because as I heard the conversation, I was imagining the synergies and the things that you're talking about, how it's going to build community. And I would say that my curiosity and my interest, right? I mean, you heard Rico, who is a senior VP at PNC Bank and also who's from Baltimore. My daughter, who's doing work here on Medicaid, but also it's about the social well-being. That's what I heard you talking about.
Yes, sir.
The young people outside who you want to get away from these things, right? It's the culture of the place that's going to make that matter. It's the culture of creating a place that people value, that people want to invest in perpetuating, that people want to celebrate each other and celebrate it. I can tell you that that's the most important foundational asset that is going to be important in you owning and transforming this rich place with its culture and with all of its aspects. So we can talk about all the economic aspects and all the business aspects, but if we don't have those foundational assets that I hear you speaking of, the culture of the community, the foundational skills of people caring for each other, right, to make sure that people can do these things, the basic skills, what you're talking about, what makes that skill respond to his question is not because it is treating a specific job, but it is teaching the skills and the emotions of having a job, which is going to allow people to transform into wherever the world of work is taken. The idea that they understand what it is to complete a task, they understand what it is to critically evaluate and do things. That's what I heard when you were talking about the administrator, this and that. I wasn't necessarily hearing a specific job as much as a skill, a habit, an approach towards being able to create some things. And what I think I would like to listen and hear some more about, just based on what I heard about people as they introduce themselves, is about how they can also create wealth through the creative processes that I heard some of you talk about. That's a very important creative process of creating wealth. Through working with the institutions and having the institutions understand how their public good can be working together with community to create new kinds of value that the community can own its experience. And that's very important because this is Baltimore. And as I was explaining to people, whether it is Baltimore or Jamaica or Appalachia or Tanzania or Honduras or other places where I've had the privilege of working with communities, the one thing that they all had taken from them was their right to own their lives. It's not about the infrastructure, it's not about the buildings, it's about the right to own their lives and to have agency to be able to transform their lives and transform their aspirations in what they want. So I'm hearing about the aspirations and I'm very excited about this group. In fact, I was going to say to Prof. Harris, I said, wow, as people were introducing themselves, I said, what richness. You and I have worked in places and we understand the richness that we just heard. Right? I mean, you've advised countries all over the world. That's about the top professors, leading scholars from Stanford University, but it's about the richest. Nothing is as rich as what we've heard here. And what I'm saying is, if we can somehow work to organize, right? And I'll tell you to end, the simplest way to understand this: governments naturally are organized through their political process, through their administrative processes. Businesses are naturally organized through trade groups. The hardest part and the hardest group or collective to organize is community. Community is the hardest to organize. And the problem is that if government and the private sector can organize, then what happens is, don't be fooled by this public-private partnership. It means that the government and the private sector make the community's life residual in that process. You get what's left over. And the only way that you can make sure that you are part of the construction of the architecture of your economic reality is if you also then learn to organize. And so the Historic Art Social Club, there's a reason why it has lasted how long. It's because it is rich in its culture. Now that culture has to become the spine of the community organizing so that it can represent itself in this larger discussion and negotiation about its future. And the nature of the work that I do, that we do, is to be a vehicle for a community's aspiration in organizing to represent how it can own its future. So I just say that to you to say that I'm excited to be here, to listen and to hear, and and it's very, very rich what I've heard, and I continue to listen to see whether I believe that I could collaborate in encouraging a kind of a cooperation that could make the community own and make its aspirations transform the place into what it wants to achieve. So thank you very much for the privilege of listening in. But I want to tell you that it's really exciting to hear your richness. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll take a question.